WeRiseNation.com.
This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud and clear. If you seek it, you will find what you looking for. And once you hear us, it'll leave you looking for some more. Open the door, let us in, we got a special vibe. Now close the door, lock us in, and enjoy the ride. We about to talk about some things that make a lot of sense. And what we talking about, here sometimes will get intense. That's what we looking for, trying to spark a conversation. Join us live or you can listen on the We Rise Nation. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it, coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We bout to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. This where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it.
Welcome back to another edition of the Grown Men Podcast. I am your host, BAN, and welcome back to the show. Well, folks, it's been a little while since we talked to you. We've been on hiatus, so to speak, but a lot of different stories been jumping off between then and now. But the thing I want to talk about is us and what we are doing as a community and in humanity. It's one of these situations where I've been talking to people lately about things that have been going on. And I just had to come to terms to think about these things. And I had to talk about them and express them right here on the Grown Men Podcast. And since I have the platform, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I want to start it off by saying there's a lot of things that have been going on that affect Black Americans, right? But it's not only just Black Americans, but all Americans. As we know what Felon 47 has been doing. He's been once again running roughshod over the federal government, using it as his own tool in his play chess or whatever he wants to do and move us all around on a chessboard and call us all out of our names and things of that nature. We know this is what he does. This is his MO. So we have to ask ourselves as Black Americans, if it doesn't affect us, do we really care? And I've been getting a lot of different perspectives on that, from talking to people all the time and just listening to them talk in general conversations. And people really don't care about anything that doesn't affect them. Now, you had a lot of white Trump supporters as well as Black Trump supporters who voted for this man 3 times. 3 times they voted for Felon 47. And now they have what I've called before buyer's remorse. And to those, I say tough luck. And it was a Black man who owned a business. I forget where it was. I believe it might have been down in Florida or somewhere. And by deporting some of the Haitian people, that took away his staff. And I had no sympathy and no remorse for it because you knew who he was. And yet you chose to go to the ballot box 3 times and vote this man in. So to me, you got what you deserved. I don't like to see people on hard times, but when you knew the risks and you did it anyway, then you have to reap what you sowed. That's the way I feel about it. And then you had the white Trump supporters saying, oh, we didn't ask for any of this. We didn't think that this was going to go down. But you did or didn't mind, that they were beating down immigrants and murdering people in the street, trying to get control over immigration. You didn't mind none of that. But then when your food prices and your gas prices went up, then you had an issue. Tough luck. Once again, as I've said previously here on the Grown Man Podcast, I have no sympathy and no feel remorseful for what happens to people in these situations because you brought it upon yourself. My problem is that you brought it upon people who didn't deserve it, people who didn't vote for this felon. That's the people that I'm concerned with. Those are the people that I have empathy for. not people who knowingly went out and did this out of spite, because that's what a lot of people did, right? They voted for him out of spite because they wanted to stick it to the establishment. Well, now you have to reap that, right? And everything that goes along with it. And us as Black Americans, we always look at it like, okay, we're not going to vote, for Democrats because of whatever the reason. They don't do this and they don't do that. And they listen to these political pundits who say absolutely nothing about helping Black Americans. The only thing they want to do is to keep you away from the polls. They don't want you to vote at all. They want you to say, look, everything is going to be all right. Trust us. We're going to take care of you. The Republican Party hasn't done anything for Black Americans in a very long time. And people always, once again, I have to keep mentioning it, they go back to what the Democrats did in the South. We know that. And I've said it before, I don't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. I don't even consider myself an independent, because to be that, you have to group in with a bunch of other people that you don't necessarily have nothing in common, or do you agree with them? My thing is when I go to the polls, or when I get my ballot, and whether I mail it or go to the polls, I look for the people who have the like-mindedness of myself. And that's who I put my vote for. And I just don't see anybody in the Republican Party who values the same things that I do. And that's freedom and humanity and all of these things that go with that. And they like to label people communists or socialists because we want to help humanity and help people get up on their feet. Now, Republicans always said, let's roll up our sleeves and go to work. Yeah, that's true. Every able-bodied person needs to be working. There's no question about that. And I don't think anybody on the Democratic side is saying people don't need to go to work. However, there are some people who cannot work. And those people need the services that this federal government, under this idiot Felon 47 and that idiot Elon Musk, cut out a lot of programs. Not only did they do that here, but they did it in places like Africa where there are starving children. And of course, Elon Musk got a kick out of that because once again, he thinks that Africa, in the countries of Africa, have been racist against white Africans, which I've always said, give me a break. Because for centuries, we know what they did to Africans in Africa. They went in and robbed the place, basically, and took everything out from under the people, used the black people to mine these caves where they got all these riches from, raided it, and then took it to the European nations. That's what they did. But us as Black Americans, I want to talk about us because we are the ones who are choosing to once again say nothing. I mean, how many things need to happen to us until we get, involved? So there have been several things that have come up. And one of the top things that I've been following, and I was talking to Mark about it as well, where you are finding Black Americans hanging. Recently 6 Black people have been found hanging in publicly reported cases across the U.S. in 2026. Several deaths were quickly classified as suicides, while families and communities in some cases have questioned these conclusions. And that's the very thing. You see people being hung and they hurry up and get these cases out of here. And the Nolan Wells situation, which is ongoing, where it's like, okay, nothing to see here, nothing happened, right? And people are saying, wait a minute, something happened. So we're looking into the death of, young men like Nolan Wells and Daniel Irvin and Tyler Smith, who were found, near bodies of water. And a number of these bodies were reported hanging in trees from across the country. And here's a young Black woman, and I spoke recently on a podcast about that. 29-year-old Tasia Fortune was found hanging from a tree in the backyard of a reportedly abandoned home in Jackson, Mississippi. My family's down there, so we know what that's about. That brings up a lot of feelings for us. And when we see that things are not being done, then we have an issue. We definitely do. We have something that we need to talk about and discuss. These are the things that are going on all the time. And we need to figure out how we're going to solve these problems. And yet still, it's one of these situations where we're getting nowhere, and we're getting nowhere fast because people aren't willing to tell the truth about what's going on. And the mother of Tasia Fortune, she says, my daughter did not do this to herself. I know my daughter, and she did not do this to herself. This has just devastated us. Tasia was a strong-minded. She was full of laughs and love. And she's denying the fact, the mom is denying the fact that her daughter would do anything like that. Back in 2025, Trey Reed, 25-year-old, was found hanging from a tree at Delta State University in Mississippi. Tori Medley, 39, was found hanging from a tree in Brookfield Hills Golf Course in Wisconsin. And they quick to say suicide, suicide, suicide. There's really no investigation when you find Black Americans hanging from trees. They want to sweep this under the rug, as one of the stories said. Don't sweep this under the rug. At least 6 Black people found hanging. Families and communities question quick conclusions from police. Because, see, police don't give a damn. It's not their relatives. They could care less. They got other things to do. On to the next case as far as they're concerned. And the families have to get on with their lives. How many times Black people have been told to get on with their lives after losing a loved one? I've seen this several times. And we have to deal with it right here in the city of Chicago all the time. We have to deal with the fact that our loved ones get killed, whether they be murdered or under suspicious circumstances, and we're just supposed to just walk it off. Just walk it off. You'll feel better after you walk it off and then pray for a long time, and you'll be okay. No, you won't be okay. We know that prayer helps. Nobody's saying it doesn't. It helps people. It certainly does. But sometimes you need justice as well so you can heal. You need to know exactly what happened to your loved one. All of the details, every single one of them. Yes, we need to know these things. All of us have had someone in our family where something happened to them and we never gotten the full story. For most people, it's very sad and it's heartbreaking that these kind of things continue to happen. And there is no accountability because in places like the police force, unless you have some kind of money to hire private investigators, which they know most people don't, you're never really going to get to the bottom of that story unless you have a concerted effort of people pushing together. And that's what people are doing right now. That's what I'm doing, talking about it right here on the Grown Men Podcast. Now, some of us as Black Americans, we need to step our game up. And I'm speaking of the celebrities and the athletes and all these things under the sun, the Black podcasters. Where you guys at? I hear a lot of them talking about it. I want more talking about it. Because we need to shed light on these situations so they don't continue to happen and happen and happen as they already are. It gets me heated and hot. I've said this several times. It gets me heated and hot. I have to control myself and contain myself because I want to come across with clarity when we talk about these topics. I don't want to be so emotional about it. Sometimes I can't help myself because it just hurts. It's just the fact of the matter that as a Black man, to see other Black people or anybody for that matter come up missing. I don't like to see any human being come up missing. But it just seems like to me from what I see, Black Americans are least valued. And that's by other Black Americans as well, because we don't value each other. And sometimes looking from outside, if you see people that don't value each other, why should you value them? That's the mentality. It's not right, but that's the mentality that some people have. Case in point, just recently, there is a video that's going around viral right now of a deputy down in, I believe it's either Arkansas or Tennessee, right down in that area, that took an 18-year-old girl that weighed 90 pounds and threw her to the ground in a body slam motion and then punched her in the face. And when she said, "You punched me in the face, you don't have a right to do that," and he said, "Who told you I don't have that right?" This is what's going on all across America. And it starts at the top with Felon 47. Because Felon 47 is trying to eliminate black people in roles that matter. And the ones that he like are the ones that like him. If you say anything negative about him and you're a black man, then you're called unintelligent. This is from a man who every time he talks, he waves and wiggles his hands and nobody knows what the hell he's saying or talking about. And they ask him these softball questions because they know his mental capacity is that of a 3-year-old child. He's an idiot and a moron, which I've said several times on the Grown Man Podcast, and I will continue to say so because that's how I feel about Felon 47. He's an idiot and a moron. And he's trying to eliminate black people as we know it. He's trying to eliminate our history. These are the things that are going on right now. This administration has had several executive orders. As the Black Congressional Caucus, they are closely monitoring a series of executive orders and presidential actions issued by the Trump administration that we believe will have profound implications for black Americans. These directives target critical areas such as economic opportunity, education, criminal justice, health equity, and civil rights protections. And there are a lot of things that just happened recently this week where black American companies had contracts to do things for the government and had their contracts canceled because it's called DEI. As if these people weren't qualified. Felon 47 insulted all of black America. But where is all of black America in responding to these issues? We're not there. You know why? Because a lot of us side with this, hey, if we get money, if we have to pay less taxes and we get money, that's good for us. No, that's good for you. Because you care about yourself and that's all. The only thing you care about is how much money you can get. And once again, I've said it before that black Americans step on black Americans' necks all the time. It's a known fact because we don't care. And that's why we don't get anywhere. Because see, these so-called wealthy black Americans that sit at the top, they think they are privileged. Once again, I've said previous on the podcast, white privilege is not just for white Americans. Black Americans have crossed over into that perspective now. They've gained that kind of, civility where they think that they're untouchable as well until you're on that dark road at night and you get pulled over. And you'll see how untouchable you really are. But back to the story about these executive orders and what's been going on left and right. The Congressional Black Caucus is looking into each and every one of these things and trying to figure out exactly what's going on with this. And see, once again, with Felon 47, he's going to try to cross all those T's and put those dots over those I's and make sure that it's legal. And of course, the Supreme Court has rolled right along with them. Think about it. They tried to roll back voting rights. And Felon 47 is still trying to push that Save the Vote Act. Instead of admitting to the fact he lost an election, he's trying to say that he won 3 times. And he has nominated people to sit in the federal government who are election deniers. You know, the Democratic side could have easily done that back in, what was that, 2000, back when Al Gore ran, and we know they burned those ballots down there in Florida. The Democratic Party could have carried that on and on for years and years, but they didn't. They got over it and moved on. But not these MAGA people, right? Because these MAGA people will keep going and going with a lie that they know is a lie. But they don't care because they want power and everything that power gives them the right to do, which is raid and rob the American people blind. And some rubes and suckers are still with it, but now they've kind of got off to the side. As I heard a lot of people who voted for Felon 47 3 times saying, well, we're not going to vote for Democrats. We just won't vote at all. And this is what they say. And these are supposed to be these proud Americans, right? These patriotic Americans are saying they're not going to cast their vote. That goes to show you how patriotic they are. They're not patriotic at all because you're refusing to vote. Because the guy that you put all your trust in turned out to be not what you thought he was going to be. And as I said before, I have no remorse. I hope you hit rock bottom. I truly do. Because then you will see how other people feel. As Black Americans, we have to get our own house in order. But we're not even doing that. We're not even close. There are a lot of issues that we have going on right now that we continue to not want to address for whatever the case and whatever the reason. We continue to think that if we get enough money, that will solve all our problems. And it's simply not the case. Yes, wealth is part of it. Generational wealth is part of it. But also we have to make laws and policies that were put in place already, that were taken away, that will be cemented forever. And yet you have Felon 47 who every time he has an issue, he goes and runs to the Supreme Court to try to get them to solve it. This is what he does on a regular basis. Because he's trying to repeal and roll back all of the rights that were fought for by the people who have lived and died. And I'm talking about all civil rights fighters. There were blacks, there were whites, there were Latinos, there was Asians, there was all kind of people mixing together. And that is the biggest fear of these MAGA people, is that they're going to be outnumbered. A lot of cases come up where, you know, different sides are going to go for different aspects of how they're trying to interpret law and how they come up with it. And Congress is supposed to have the power over these things. But Felon 47 continues to ignore them. And his little crony Mike Johnson hasn't been seen, hasn't taken any interviews, hasn't done anything, because he knows he's a dead duck in the water. He knows that his time is up. That's why Felon 47 is trying to put the fix in. That's why he wants that Save the Vote Act. That's why he wants all these components in place, because he knows that it's going to be a bloodbath. If it's a fair election. And that's a big word, if. Because I see this coming down to what's right and what's wrong and who's going to stand up for right. Because anytime you have military personnel showing up at voting booths and places like that trying to intimidate people, we no longer live in a free country. We no longer live in a free country. We live in a third world country run by an idiot dictator who's past his prime. That's what we're looking at. But we can fight against this. We can stand up to this. And by doing so, we let our voices be known, let it be heard, how we feel about these situations. And that's how we have to speak up. We have to do the things that we have to do to make sure that fair elections are had and our voices are heard when we have something to say. It's that simple. Put the work in, people. That's exactly what we need to do. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with more on the Grown Man Podcast.
I gotta meditate, gotta get my mind right. Channel my inner spirit, maybe I can find a light. Been in and out of storms, yet still chasing dreams. Turning the nightmares, visions of what I've seen. The desperation and hopelessness leaves us in despair.
And what we have to do is we have to respect ourselves enough not to be going out doing the things that we do to each other in our communities. First, it starts there. But once again, there is no fundamental respect. We don't respect one another. So how can other people respect us or take us seriously? This is what's threatening our communities. This is what's been happening for a while now. Because it used to be a time where there was some measure of respect in the black community. And we lost that. We lost our vision. For some reason, we started to think, why care if it doesn't affect us? And that's the whole point about it. A lot of people say it doesn't affect me until it does. Because all of us look at things from the outside when they're happening to someone else, right? Until it happens to us. And then everything stops. And we want everybody to focus on our issues. When all along, we should have been focusing on everyone's issue as a whole. Once again, as Mark and myself have talked about right here on the Grown Men Podcast, first you have to have humanity and everything else will take care of itself. You have to take care of humanity. In other words, we have to look after one another in this world, and we do not do this. And when people criticize other people for not doing it, those people tend to get upset. When you are put in a political position where you have to look out for the well-being of people, all people, it's a tough job because everyone's needs are different. However, taking care of oneself and others should be universal to us all. But we know that it's not. It's not across the world, and certainly it's not in this country. Because the leadership at the top only cares about the people that they care about. And if you don't fit that criteria, if you don't measure up, they could care less what happens to you. You're off their radar. They're only out for their agenda. And Felon 47 and his administration has made it clear that they are waging war on the citizens of the United States. And they can try to color it up and call it what they want to because it's called divide and conquer. And once again, us as Black Americans, we fall for this scheme because we're all about money because we've never had it. And this is the thing, I've said this before on the Grown Man Podcast. How much money do you really need? Because I don't need that much. At this point in my life, I've gotten what I'm going to get out of it. Now, yes, I have to make sure that my grandchildren are going to be taken care of and things are going to happen for them. But as for myself, I've chased that dream when I was younger. Yes, I want generational wealth. After I'm gone, I want them to have it. I want them to see it. I want them to recognize and understand it for what it is. Because generational wealth allows us to accumulate knowledge that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And we can go back into history and talk about these things. My grandparents didn't know more than my parents. And my parents didn't know more than I did. And I didn't know more than my daughter did. These things all run hand in hand. And it's all about being put in position where you can have success. and stop reaching for the quick success that may not be sustainable. Those are the things that we have to focus on in the black community. And a lot of us, once again, we check out on that because if it doesn't affect us, we don't care until it does. And that's a lot of the complaints I've been hearing lately from people where they come up talking to me like, man, such and such is high, or this was high, or that. Yeah, but you knew that in the first place. And yet you chose to stay on the sideline and do absolutely nothing about it. And a lot of people, like I said, once again, when you didn't vote at all, and I know a lot of people that didn't because they proudly say that they didn't vote because it does not matter. Yes, it does matter. The same way they just had these primaries, a lot of people voted and it mattered because a lot of those establishment Democrats are sitting outside looking in, and the Democratic Party has no choice but to embrace the socialist progressives. They have no choice but to embrace that because the younger people came out and said, you know what? I like what they were talking about. Sounded good to me. And they put these people in these positions to now go after the Republican Party. And the Republican Party is scared. That's why they're trying to come up with communists, because socialists didn't work. They got to put some ist on the end of it, right? To make it seem spooky and scary, like they're trying to take something away from you. Once again, this world will continue long after we're gone. It will still be here. People will still be living 1,000 years from now and 10,000 years from now. Human beings will still be living. We come and go all the time. So don't fall for the okey doke. Don't fall for that. When people tell you that they're trying to take something away from you. The same way that idiot Felon 47 was talking about eating pets. He actually said this during a presidential campaign run. This is what's turned upside down about this country. But I do believe that it will not age well, because when future historians look back on this time period, they will see how ignorant we were, because we are very ignorant people right now. We're ignorant to the fact of real life because either we don't know any better or we're complicit in it. Either way, it's an issue. And it's been that way for a while. And it seems like ever since, this man was elected the first time, and then he tried to steal an election the second time, people report these things and everything he says as if this is normal. In no other point in history has what's going on right now ever went on and was unchecked. Because the power of Congress would not allow a sitting president to do the things that Felon 47 is doing right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had a Congress. These are the things that we know as facts. This is what's going on right now in this country. And yet we continue to say it doesn't affect us till it does. So when gas prices go up, guess what? You no longer can make those runs. You no longer can do that driving that you were doing before earning that money because it didn't affect you, but now it does. So the price of groceries goes up. Before you could afford to do this. It didn't affect you, but now it does. Now, us as Black Americans, we've done without before, and I've talked about it here on the Grown Man Podcast. It's certain things I just simply won't do. And it won't hit me as hard as it will hit someone else. A struggling mother who may have 3 or 4 children, a single mother, not struggling, but she is going to be struggling because now her food is cut off. Her ability to get food stamps, to get food for her children is being cut off, even though she's a working mom. This is what's going on in this country and continues to happen. And it doesn't just affect Black Americans. But black Americans are in that scope. We're always in the sights by Felon 47 because he wants to take every right that we've gained away from us. And if they take away our voting rights based on our income, as they did in the past, where if you didn't own land or property, you couldn't vote. That's how they made black Americans not be able to vote. Because we simply didn't meet the criteria to be allowed to vote. We didn't own land. And the land we did own, they took it from us. There was no law. Black people weren't allowed to own anything. We were the ownees. We were the people that were owned. So you see this happening right now into the future, right now, of what's going on. And they just use the same playbook. They just use different ways of playing the game. And we have to get ourselves together and establish ourselves and say we are a united front. We're not going to get along. No group of people is going to get along. But for the common good, we have to understand what is happening to us as a whole and then say, yes, this affects me. But if we continue to sit on the sideline and think that if we get enough money, everything will be just fine, wrong answer. You're only deluding yourself. Because for the simple fact, no matter how much money you get, you're still going to be an N-word to them. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, that's what they're saying behind your back. Because they have no use for you other than being a useful tool to try to talk about other black Americans, which is what I see them doing all the time. Because that's what they pay them to do. Whether it be Fox News or ESPN or any of these other places. Take your pick. And you can see black Americans go hard on other black Americans. But when it comes to people that are non-black Americans, their criticism is very limited. Why do we see this all the time? That's why I don't watch these shows. That's why I don't shop at these places. That's why I don't invest in these businesses, invest my money. Because I see what you are. You've shown me exactly what you are and who you are. So I choose not to spend my dollars with you. So you can get those millions from somewhere else, but you won't get it from me. And Lord behold, you see all these networks. They're jettisoning black people left and right. This is what they've been trying to do for the longest. But once again, it did not matter because it didn't affect me till it did. This is what a lot of people are feeling right now, especially a lot of black Americans, whether they own businesses or not. When they went to the polls, they voted for Felon 47. They admitted that they did. And now they have buyer's remorse. Tough. Deal with it. Don't expect sympathy from people like me because I'm a hardliner when it comes to that. When you bury yourself trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, or trying to act like your skin color no longer matters and that you're getting over by other means, think again. It's the same way when you look at a recording artist, whether it's a rap or R&B singer or whatever the case, and they say, yeah, I'm getting all this big money because these white people allow me to get this big money. Guess what? Wrong again, because those white people aren't streaming your music. They're not going home listening to your music. They're not downloading your music. That's what black Americans do on a regular basis. Black Americans have made more of these entertainers, millionaires, than anybody else would. Unless you're counting football. And even so, when you think of that, you know how that works. If you hurt your knee, you're cut real fast. You're out of the league. You're yesterday's news real fast. How many guys have come in and out of the NFL over the years? Think about it. Thousands. But that's the kind of turnover you have in sports. As I've said previously on the Grown Man Podcast, I would like to see us get out of sports. Don't be in it. Don't be all in that. Because at the end of the day, you hear these stories all the time about these black athletes who, after their playing days are over, they're penniless and they have to go find other jobs. Now, some of that is their fault because they weren't literate when it comes to their finances. But a lot of times it wasn't their fault. They just weren't paid enough money to survive. And I know a lot of people say, well, they was making this amount of money. Yeah, after they take taxes out, and then you have to pay for your trainers and different things, as we've spoken about previously on the Grown Men Podcast, there's not really that much money left over if you are just an average player. Because there are only certain big name superstars that are going to get big money. And most of them are quarterbacks, or they be defensive ends and those type of people, and offensive linemen. They'll get that kind of money. But if you're like a regular guy who's on the team, or you're on the special teams unit or something like that, you're not going to earn any big money because they can replace you. You're a dime a dozen. If a kicker missed 3 kicks, he's cut. If a punter doesn't get that ball inside the 15 and 10, he's going to get cut. Those are the realities. And that kind of stuff happens in real life. And when I say real life, I'm talking about people who go to work every day on a job. When the business is slow, you get cut. Same deal. But for those people, it's even worse. Because if you got a family and they also, and all of a sudden they tell you that your hours are cut in half, when you used to get 40, 45 hours a week, maybe 50, and then now they want to cut you down to 30, 35 hours, you're going to feel that. Especially with the economy that we're in right now. But once again, a lot of us say it doesn't affect me till it does. So we have this mentality that nothing that goes on, unless it's something significantly that's going to change my life, I'll deal with it as I have in the past. And a lot of people feel that way. Like they'll go through presidents and senators and mayors and Congress people and all these people under the sun and say none of this matters. The only thing matters is what I'm seeing in my paycheck. But your paycheck right now is not any bigger than it was before. With all these so-called cuts, which we found out were bogus cuts and didn't save trillions of dollars like that idiot Elon Musk and Felon 47 said. It actually did not. It saved nothing. And yet they cut quality programs that were helping people to survive and live a fruitful life. A lot of these social services that people needed were cut and slashed for no reason other than this felon to build a stupid gold ballroom that nobody gives a damn about. It's a fantasy in his own mind. And anybody who says anything else is a damn liar, and I'll call them that to their face, because nobody would want to go to that crap. It looks stupid. And yeah, we heard Lil Wayne say, yeah, I like the way he did that, because once again, Lil Wayne is an idiot. We've established that fact. This is the man that said he beats it up like Emmett Till. See, people tend to sweep that under the rug. That's another thing that we do as Black Americans. When other Black Americans say something offensive, we'll still listen to that music. We'll still go to them concerts. He shouldn't have said that, but we still going to celebrate him. No. A person like me, I cut ties with you. I don't buy your music. I don't listen to you. If you come on a station that I'm listening to, I turn my radio off. I do that with several artists. Several artists that I don't want to hear. Because I will not spend $1 with you or your business or help you at all. When you say idiotic, stupid things like that, you get what you deserve. But other people know. If you're a celebrity, you're fine with saying anything under the sun that's offensive to Black people. But yet, let you say something offensive about a white American, then you're going to have some issues. And that's what us as Black American celebrities do. We're not going to rock that boat. These good white folk that give me good white money, and I'm happy and proud to bow down and accept that check. I talk about anybody you want me to talk about, sir. Once again, I go back to the movie Deep Cover. What's the difference between a black man and an N-word? I don't know. And like the guy said, most N-words don't. And that's exactly how I feel about these so-called celebrities and athletes. They don't know who they are or what they are. You can call them anything you want, just don't call them late for dinner. Because they can be bought and sold. We've seen this time after time again, where these big corporations throw this big money and they look at it like, this is more money than I've ever seen in my life. I can't turn it down. Because once again, they don't have no value and they don't have no moral compass. They don't have no moral compass. They'll do anything for money. And we see this time after time. But Black Americans who are in the real fight, that are under the scope, we're the ones that need to rise up. We're not concerned with the ones who got a few pennies because they're meaningless. They don't have real jobs where they have to actually go to work and do a real job. They don't have that. So they need to see what that's like. And sometimes you have to, once again, let them fall. Don't help them rise. Let them fall. And see if they can make their way back up to the surface where the rest of us are, where we're going to prosper and live good. That's the values that we should be teaching our children and grandchildren. Rise up, be the best that you can be. You don't have to play sports. If you can't play a sport, that's okay. You don't have to be an entertainer. If you can't entertain, that's okay. Do something else that makes you happy. And maybe one day that thing that makes you happy, that is your passion, can also be your career. Because we need plenty of law enforcement that are Black. We need plenty of doctors that are Black. We need plenty of lawyers that are Black. Because they can understand where you are coming from. They can understand where you've been and what you're going through at this moment. Where others can't, they can. And that's what we have to focus on. Those are the values that we have to instill in our children as well as ourselves. When you talk to someone, give them a positive thought. That's what I always try to do when I talk to people every day. All walks of life, right? The conversation is always positive. It's never negative. I don't talk down on what someone should or shouldn't be doing. I say, hey, if it's hard, man, try to do the best you can. And it'll work itself out if you keep trying, if you can see it, if you can visualize it happening. Because we all get down. I get down a lot. But then I have to get back up. I have no other choice but to rise. Because if I fall, I may not get back up ever. Not on this earth. So we have to take that mentality and carry that with us for a better promise of a future. It affects us all. So we can't just say, if it doesn't affect me, I don't care about it. We just cannot have that mentality. We can't afford to have it. There are so many things going on right now, especially during this election cycle, where the Republican Party has already said that if they can gain that control and have it for another 2 years under Felon 47's presidency, they're going to really turn it up because they'll be in full control. And now the Democratic Party has to have their feet held to the fire because they have made a lot of promises of what they're going to do. And as I said previously on the Grown Man Podcast before, we want those prosecutions against people who broke the law for this felon. We want those prosecutions. We want to see them through. And we want these people prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Not no slap on the wrist and everything goes back to the way it used to be. No, not at all. We want to see those people perp walk like Felon 47 wanted to do everyone else. We know he'll never face that, right? He's never going to get the perp walk. He may get the death walk real soon, but he won't get the perp walk because we know they're not going to send him to prison. And he's going to pardon the people that he can, but he can't pardon everyone. And the ones who are not protected are the ones that need to be gone after. And right now, because there are some who are going to flip on this felon. We all know those Epstein files live in his head, as well they should. But now that you got that idiot, his attorney, his personal attorney, Todd Blanche, at the head of the Justice Department, you know he's going to continue to stall those Epstein files. And he wants them to go away because he know that Felon 47's name is in there several times for being inappropriate with people. We know this. And a lot of his friends are in there. He said it publicly before. A lot of people he knows is going to get hurt behind it. We know that. They're all trying to lie low right now and wish this thing away. Wish it out into the cornfield, right? Like on the Twilight Zone. This is what they want to do with the Epstein file. But they're still present. They're ever present. And they're going to continue to be that way. And once again, as we ratchet it up and see what's going on over at ICE. Because once again, ICE should never have been a thing in the first place. We had immigration enforcements in this country, and people never had to go out, throw people on the ground, and do all kind of stupid things that you never have to do, and hire people who are not qualified for these damn positions. Because they're hiring 18-year-olds. Why in the hell would you give an 18-year-old a gun? And now they're giving them these taser gloves where they can easily touch people. And Felon 47 said, oh, that's a wonderful idea. Of course he thinks it is. Because he's made this statement several times. He does not like people that don't like him. He cannot be a president for people who don't like him. This is what he said. And we know that parties, presidents have come and gone, both Republican and Democrat. And whether they felt that way behind closed doors, it is what it is, but they've never publicly came out and said that. But Felon 47 did. And a lot of people said it's a good thing that he said it because now you know where he stands. But we knew where he stood before he even said it. We know that he cares for himself and his billionaire friends and no one else. He wants to trickle down dimes and nickels to the rest of us. When somebody sees a paycheck and they say, oh, I got like 25 cents more than I had 2 weeks ago. As if that matters when his friends have $2 million that they didn't have 2 weeks ago. That's the big difference. Everybody is not sharing in what's going on. And a lot of the people are too late to wake up to it. And they think about him building an empire, and they believe that he actually did these things because he said it enough times. But real people know the truth. They know that he's a con man. That's what he's been from day one, a con man. And a lot of people fall for the big con. And as I said before, a lot of people will benefit from it. Both black, white, Latino, Asian American, everybody will benefit from a con if you're in on it. Until the jig is up, Felon 47 is going to skate. There'll be no penalties against him. He's not going to prison. He's going to hell. But the other people are going to prison, then hell. So that's the difference in what's going on right now. He's going to have full immunity. They are not. So if I was those people, I'd be shaking in my boots right now, wondering when the other shoe's going to drop. And if I'm going to be able to get out of this thing unscathed. Maybe they'll just, fake some kind of injury like Paul Manafort did. So, he's so ill that he can't be allowed to stand up and testify for the criminal actions that he did during Trump's first term. But this is a lot of the things that we're going to see in the following months leading up to the elections in November. It's going to be interesting. As you have people saying about qualifications, and you see people saying it all the time about Kamala Harris being qualified to be president And yet you have Lindsey Graham's sister who's finishing up her term and everybody's full endorsement. What makes her qualified to hold that seat? We know that South Carolina is a small state, but what makes her qualified to hold that seat? Once again, look at it for what it is. Black Americans, once again, have to prove time after time again that we're qualified for a position. Whether it be a doctor, a lawyer, a president, a senator, all these things under the sun. Once again, we have to show and prove. While white Americans can be the dumbest in the world and they skate, because there have been some dumb presidents of these United States. Go back and look at your history, people. Read up on some of them. And you'll see how dumb, ignorant, and stupid they really were. However, they were white, so they skated. Because once again, all you have to do is show up with that skin color. And a lot of people say he knows what he's talking about. Like when Felon 47 moves his hands and conjectures the way he does, oh, he must be brilliant and smart because he's moving his hands. No, he's a buffoon. He's an idiot and a moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. He knows that Steve Miller is advising him to say things and do things, and that other idiot who writes his tweets. But this is what goes on right now in this country. But once again, if it doesn't affect me, till it does. Because when they take something away that you care about, then you're in an uproar. But nobody is trying to hear you. Because you had the opportunity to stand up and actually do something about this, and you did nothing. Because you said it didn't affect you. You actually get a kick out of seeing people dragged out of cars and women threw on the ground by ICE. You like that. You get off on that. That's where we are right now in society, unfortunately, in this country. And it's going to take some time to wash this stain away from this country. Trust me when I tell you, it's not going to happen in my lifetime. And I know that I'm not going to live to see it, but my grandchildren will be around. And they'll have to look back at this era, and I hope they're well adjusted and educated enough to say, this was the stupidest era that this country ever suffered through. Because it was. And the reason for it is it didn't have to be. Because we see people do this all the time where they stand up for the things that they truly believe in. And they fight hard, whether they win or lose. But yet you see these other people, on the other hand, they won't fight. They'll give in. They'll accept what is going on. And that is the major problem. That is our main concern right here in the United States of America. We're too passive. And as Black Americans, we're too passive. And a lot of people say, yeah, people didn't like to vote because they didn't give us something to vote for. Once again, we have the power to hold these politicians accountable because, as I've said previously on the Grown Man Podcast, they work for us and we do not work for them. Well, folks, it appears my time is up. I'm glad you came back to listen to the Grown Man Podcast. Leave some comments. Let us know how you like what we were talking about. Anything that interests you that I brought to the table that you may have, a rebuttal to or pushback to. We're always interested in listening to what our listeners are saying. Head on over to WeRiseNation.com. Check out the links. Check out the music over there. Check out our previous podcast and our clips at the Grown Man Podcast on YouTube, as well as Instagram and Blue Sky. Well, until next time we speak, I am your host, BAN, and we will talk to you soon.
Where the grown men stay so you can kill that noise. We be the best to do it coming out of Illinois. So sit back and relax, close your mouth and listen. We about to hit you with this knowledge that you've been missing. Listen closely to the Grown Men Podcast. We Rise Nation is the station with the gift of gab. We dropping knowledge on these topics that you wanna hear. We on point with it, get the picture loud.